So I woke up yesterday morning with the phrase, "Don't follow the flow," which was fun because it's a little bit heretical for me, as someone who's done a lot of following the flow. And it got me thinking about it. And it got me thinking about the nature of going with things, letting go, and steering, and will. The will. And then this morning I woke up with it again. And so I thought I'd have a go at thinking about it on one of these video blogs, or as my 12-year-old daughter tells me, they're called now vlogs, which I rather like, as someone who enjoys making up words. So here's my vlog. And it's still early and cold in my office, hence I'm keeping my coat on. It's warming up slowly. And I feel the need to say to anyone who's watching this, it's really important that this really is thoughts. It's provisional. You know, when I write a book, I spend a long time thinking about things and knowing what to follow, what not to follow, seeing what is a dead end, seeing what really works. And most of it's dead ends. So this isn't like that. This is an experiment with something different. This is an experiment with what happens if I share outwardly the conversations I have in my own soul, in my own psyche, in which I explore things which, you know, so what I'm trying to say is, by tomorrow, I may disagree with all of this. So it's just me exploring, and I enjoy that, and I know some of you do too, so that's what I'm doing. So I think there's been a strong idea in the milieu that I've lived in, and in me, that somehow this letting go and being in the flow is a really good way to go. Very influenced by Taoism. I do a lot of Tai Chi, especially when I was younger, and it's like, just find that. And because it feels so good, and you know it. I mean, you know, when you hit it, when, you know, the zone, like the sports people say, you're just on fire. You're really it. And not only are you performing very well, because it's just like, whoa, there's a magic, and things around you happen. You know, those are the moments where you really see that understanding life as some mechanical machine that you're kind of trapped in is really an adequate metaphor, because there is a magic, for want of a better word. It's a nice word, because it captures that kind of, whoa, you know, that this happened, the book falls on your head, the person turns up here, the money you need arrives on the day, and I suspect you've had periods like that. I've had lots of them where it's just like, whoa, and you're with it, you're with the beat, and it's, yeah. I talk about it in the mystery experience. I have a little section talking about it as a state of enlivenment, where you're really alive and with things. And that's very positive. I don't want to say anything against that. But, as well, sometimes that doesn't happen. Well, no. Let's be honest. A lot of the time, that doesn't happen. And one of the things which I have noticed as I've got older on this journey is that in many ways it's kind of happening less. And I thought it would happen more. Now, that could well be some failure in me. And that's, I suppose, how I would probably veer towards thinking about it, just habitually. I'd think about it like that, because I have learned the habit of thinking anything which is not working out right is probably to do with a failure in me. And that's a default loop which can be there. So I'm not good enough to just go with the flow enough, and if I could be, then it would all still be flowing like it was when I was younger and life was magic. Maybe that's right, but maybe there's not. Maybe there's something else. Maybe it's like, oh, right, this is a different thing now. It's like something new is required from me at this phase in my life, and maybe collectively as well, there's something different going on. So I want to explore that, and I think that's where my "don't follow the flow" came yesterday morning, and this morning. Because when things are flowing in the direction you don't want them to go in, you have to be able to turn the energy around. You have to be able to turn the situation around. And that's what I think this "don't follow the flow" was saying to me. So when I are feeling, oh, there's a negative thing inside me, thing that isn't serving me, some view of life or myself or what's happening that's there going, don't follow the flow. There, it's all flowing, but it's not flowing to the sea. It's flowing into the sewerage pit. It's like, don't go there. And collectively, I feel that too. That there's especially right now, that there is a. I don't want to exaggerate this because things are not that bad. Things are pretty good, really. But there is also a kind of instability going on in the collective psyche, which is to do with the economy, but also it's causing the economy. There's a fear thing, there's a lack of direction, there's a feeling of we don't know who we are, there's a feeling that this very objectivist, negative side of what science has achieved in all of its beauty and splendor, this kind of negative view of life as kind of meaningless and brief and grab what you can, materialism in both the sense of what matters is money and philosophically that this is all there is in that very narrow reductionist sense, has creeped into us without us noticing, and the culture's lost its way. And so there's right now we don't know what it is and where we're going and who we are and we're frightened, and then there's constant fear on the horizon with catastrophes that could assail us, and in the face of that, got to go in another direction. In the face of that, it feels like, what I need to do is individuate enough, be an individual enough that I can not just get swept away with these prevailing currents. Or maybe a metaphor here is sailing, which is a nice, simple metaphor. There's going with the wind, going before the wind, which is great. When the wind is going in the direction you want to go, you put your sail up and whoa, you're going with the wind. And you can really move, and that's beautiful. But if the wind isn't going in the direction you want to go, if it's not going in the best direction to go in, you don't want to follow the wind. You want to tack into the wind, and that's tricky. And you need to and make your sail just really narrow and get through. And this feels like a time when I'm needing to do a lot more tacking into the wind than just settle back, the wind's in my sail, before the wind. And that requires not the letting go, it requires the opposite. Now, as a paralogical thinker, as someone who is into the opposites coexisting, this is not a problem for me. I mean, I expect this. Yes, there are times and there's letting go, and there's other times and there's will. There's no, I am not going to go that direction. I'm going to go in this direction. I need to find that strength inside me to go, no, I'm not following those thoughts. I've been there. I'm not following this direction because everyone else is. No. I want to move it here. And I'm going to model a different approach to this, a different energy in this situation. When everyone's getting on, no one's getting on, or there's, can I be the one who goes, no, let's find is there a big-hearted, loving response here? Strong, though. All of that. I mean, the sort of will that I see, say, in Mohandas Gandhi, who was a huge influence on me when I was a kid, who could stand up along with his other, fellow protesters and be beaten to make change without bringing violence to it. Now, there's will in a very positive sense. Will can easily sound like something hard, like, the Nietzsche or the will to power, or that whole Zen thing, which I got into for a bit but never quite worked for me. I am meditating, I focus, and it can be very anti-fluidity, it can be anti-pleasure, it can be anti-body, it can be anti... But, all of that's... In paralogical terms, the problem isn't will, the problem is that's just will, where you're just in a world of, no, will... Then that's just that. Just like if you're just in a world of no, go with the flow, you're kind of eventually. You just know, and everything's just so. But both of those, a fluidity to notice the flow, but also like the tacking, the will to go in the direction that I want to go. And then there's a whole Advaitic thing which comes up in my head, the non-dual philosophy that comes immediately up when I mention will, because my introduction to really getting non-duality in a big way, experientially, just going, oh God, yes, it is. I'd known it was all one, but this kind of this deep level which non-duality points to was through a personal encounter, of course, with the late great philosopher Ramesh Balsekar, who I still honour immensely, but probably would now disagree with as well immensely if we got the chance to meet, which we won't, alas, because he's no longer with us. But at the time, he blew me away. And one of the things which he pointed out was, look, there's no free will. And that's become a mantra for a lot of people in the non-dual community, of which I'm kind of a part, because I certainly am teaching about oneness and was heavily influenced by non-duality. So where does that sit? And what he's saying, and it's a real place. You can, I mean, I'm not going to go into all of that right now, but just as a, what he's saying is, look, it's all one. Well, no, here's what I think he's saying, or how I understand that. And it's not like Tim has no free will. That's the wrong way around. It's going, there is no Tim. There is no Tim. There's no separateness. Everything's moving as one. These words are emerging from the oneness. It seems like it's Tim saying them, and it's my will that says I will say this word or wave this hand, and now this hand, that's my will. I'm doing this. But actually, as I awaken to a deeper level, I see, no, that's just like ripples on the surface of an ocean, and the ocean's doing everything. And there's something deep there, of one understanding, one level of reality, one perception of reality, which I am so grateful to be able to see right now. But, or as well, you see, because I'm a paralogical thinker, not a non-dual thinker, I don't want to stop there. That's the non-dual, now there's the dual. And they both sit together like yin and yang. They're both the same thing. Is that will which I experience on the human level as Tim, what is that? And I feel, here's the way it kind of, this is, try it. It feels to me like, look, there is a source of creativity. Whether you're a non-dualist who thinks everything's flowing as one, it's flowing from a source of creativity. Somehow. Or a materialist science, an objectivist who's going, look, it's all come from the Big Bang and then just unfolded as some, determinist, inevitable thing in which me going, these words now is inevitable from the moment the Big Bang. It's just had to get there. And then billiard balls are hitting each other in the old model, until there's a Tim Freke who says this. There's that, but there's still a moment at the beginning. I think it was Terence McKenna, who I loved and worked with for a bit when I was making music, who said that what that view says is, give me a moment of exquisite magic where something comes from nothing at the beginning, and then the rest I can explain. That's what that materialist philosophy is saying. Well, that exquisite moment of creativity is here now. That's the way it looks to me. It's here now. It's the ground on which everything's arising from all the time. And when I sink into my deeper self, I am becoming conscious that really I am a wave arising from that ground of exquisite creativity. Something which is not limited. And you've got then, like the Pythagoreans used to talk about it, you've got this ground which is limitless, and then you've got this experience which is limited. And the two are sitting side by side. Or this is ordered and this is disordered. The background is, or potential, possibility, or this is a whole nother vlog, but as the Kogi, who I worked with, the Kogi shamans talk about it as memory and possibility, which is giving rise to past and future, giving rise to this now, which is where memory and possibility meet. And my point is, look, that's the ground from which this is coming. So when it feels like this limited thing is just playing out and I'm going down a road that I don't want to go down, or the event's not very nice and we need a different way of going, it needs individuals who are conscious enough to sink back into that primal deep self, that deep creativity, and from that then will emerge will to move in a different direction. Creative will, loving will, that will just go, no, there. And it's, whoa, hard. And it's hard. It's hard just in me, let alone in a whole culture or a whole of humanity, which is where we need to do it, where it's like moving some gigantic tanker around. But just in me, it can be like, whoa. But when the effort's made, there comes a point where you're sailing, and it's like, yeah, we're off now. And it's that moment of being willing to engage. And that's where you see, yeah, look, life is not just about letting go. It's also about will. Life is not just about the easy things. It's also about the challenges. Life is not just about this place where everything can be easy, perfect. It's also about, no, it needs something from me. It needs a strength from me. To respond to it as well. And that strength above all that's demanded now is the strength to be conscious, to be deep awake of my deeper being, which is the ground, which is the oneness, as Ramesh Balsekar says, from which my will is arising. And it becomes personal, of course, as it arises through Tim, because Tim is a person. And in that personal will that arises through Tim, which goes, no, I'm going to think in a different way. And therefore I will have a different energy here. I turn the energy around. I'm feeling like, no, I'm going to bring this to it. Okay, sorry, I don't know what I was into then. Let's do this instead. And that will turn it around collectively. I think there's something in there of interest.